Good evening. My name is Helen Anthony. I'm the chair of the Committee on Finance, and I'm calling to order a regular meeting on Monday, July 21st, 2025 at 5:31 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chairwoman Anthony,
Present.
Vice Chairman Taylor is absent, Councilor Angela,
Present.
Councilwoman Graves,
Present.
Councilor Sanchez is absent. We have 3 present and 2 absent. We have a third.
Thank you so much. I also would like to recognize that we have Council President Miller here. Thank you very much. We also have Etty Shaw here from the City Solicitor's Office. And we also have our wonderful clerks. Thank you so much. With that, we have, as you know, we've continued our CIP discussion. I'm going to ask for a motion to waive the reading of item 1. Right. Motion made by Councilor Engelhoff, seconded by Councilor Graves. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? And the purpose of our meeting tonight is we are focusing primarily on sidewalks and streets, and I really appreciate the DPW's crew for coming in again. My intention is to keep this meeting short because we all have things that we have to go to tonight, and so. Anyway, I will have you all sworn in. And also, I'm sorry, Superintendent Randy Nelson is also very the board, sir, we really appreciate.
So noted. Everybody else that, please raise your right hands. You swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Hello.
And you state your names for the records, please.
Randy Nelson.
Sam Baker. Sal Solomon.
Chris Point Bay.
Brian Anderson. Craig Hoffman.
Okay, I'll have you come up to the table. We have plenty of seats. And we also have Crystal.
Yeah,
Limber
here, I'm not,
I know.
I'm testifying, Mary Project, please, but I can sworn in you.
Let's just swear you in case we have any questions. I doubt we will. Thank you.
And two.
You're done? Okay, so what I thought we could do this evening is have a clear discussion, brief presentation for you on our methodology used for doing our sidewalks in our streets. What's your methodology, how you decide which streets are done, sidewalks are done. I know we have the forester here today. We now know that you're very involved in some of the processes that we have in place. Then I would like to hear from whoever the director would speak on some of your new ideas, specifically what you're doing on Saturdays. I think we've talked about needing more property. Orders, things like that, anything that you're going to do differently, so we maybe press particularly our sidewalks, urgent sidewalks. Sure. Okay. I can imagine that Craig's going to be soft methodology. Are we starting streets or sidewalks?
Your preference.
Sidewalks.
Sidewalks it is. All right, so thank you for having us back again. The Department of Public Works sidewalks are primarily performed by 2 divisions, the engineering division and the highway division. The engineering division is typically implementing the capital improvement plan, right? External borrowed funds, as well as council, NIF and CDBG, and any other kind of external funding which require outside contractors. We may also oversee write-off projects that involve sidewalk improvements, utility projects that also warrant sidewalk improvements. Kind of anything done without or outside of the purview of our blue collar workforce. So over the past couple of bonds, starting in 2017, 2020, as well as the ARPA funding, DPW has used an approach which uses certain established data sets to theorize where the most amount of pedestrians are using sidewalks. We're trying to provide the biggest benefit to the most amount of users in doing so. We use criteria such as proximity to schools, RIPTA stops, high density housing areas and developments as well. Hospitals, post offices, parks, right? All features which are either generating trips to or from. And that's how we kind of overlay these features to develop pedestrian hotspots. And that's really driven the bulk of our sidewalk planning areas. We're also working around known utility projects and also presenting our plan to the utilities to say, you know, these are the areas we want to work. If you've got a project, now's the time to get in. Or we may have to defer our work out a little bit to allow them to complete that work. Our plan is typically presented up through the administration, as well as through the council for feedback and an exchange of ideas. So if the administration or councilors think that maybe there's a better suited place to implement those sidewalk projects, we're open to hearing those, as long as it fits within our methodology. So the real high overview of how we're doing. Any specific questions at this point?
In your methodology, I'm just gonna ask, is there any, equity lens? Is, and also I'd like to know, do you try to take into consideration, trying to allocate some evenly over the 15 boards, so equity lens and just dividing over the boards?
Yeah, I would say there's equity in funding across all wards. We're not really looking at census data to find economic equity. We are trying to split that up evenly as much as possible. Throughout the 15 wards in this latest tranche, the ARPA tranche, we introduced a 16th area downtown. That's been neglected over, we've had iterations of investment and neglect over decades. We've got to the point where we needed to reinvest back in some of the sidewalks downtown. We will continue with that coming up in the next couple of months here. Before this construction season ends. So generally, we're distributing that across 16 locations equally.
Okay, so equity in funding,
Equity and funding, yes.
counselors, some questions on the methodology. CP.
Okay, you were thinking equity and funding, I'm thinking equity in the quality of life in the areas. Some of these areas are much poorer and probably can be much more effective than others. I know, I can speak my word that I gave a list of streets. I went from phase 1 to phase 4 and we're still in phase 1. Of all the houses, but some of these houses, again, I would say, have been on the books for decades. So, while I appreciate the equity and funding, but most of it seems to go, and I keep saying this, none of you guys are tired of singing this song, but I'm just singing again, maybe I sing in soprano this time. But we really need to just stop doing all of the main streets and a lot of those side streets that are really bad. So how are you justifying some of that? Because I still see the main streets getting done in the side streets.
Yeah, in some wards, we have made the shift from accomplishing most of those primary corridors to getting into those neighborhoods, Ward 9 being one of those. To where we finished Broad and Elmwood, and a need was identified on Sackett Street. There's a park, high-rise residential, and a school. That ticks 3 boxes, right? So it's still continuing with our methodology, but yes, it does start connecting into the neighborhoods. We're certainly open to suggestions from counselors as to where you think might be of most importance to you. And again, as long as we can justify that with our approach, we're happy to entertain that. Again, we do have that exchange of, we do have that exchange of plans, so we encourage your input.
Council President.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm thinking, I don't know what's happened on Sixth Street, I'm sure you know much better than I do. But if there's, I guess the big question from us is like, to what degree can we? It has always felt like it was an inefficient use of NIF funds to kind of send them out to these little patches of neighborhood sidewalks. I had an instance a couple of weeks ago with someone who was weirdly just missing a whole square. It was just dirt, and was creating a trip hazard. And DPW just came in-house and fix that. That was great. I think a lot of the unsafe patchy stuff that's on our streets could fit in that, but certainly not all of it. So like, just trying to figure out how we prioritize in our neighborhoods and with our neighbors. So that when we send you a list, we can kind of be like, okay, here is we really need someone to come and care for the tree roots and smooth it out, and it's not, like the whole laying down whole new squares, and he's like, I think could use some direction in how we prioritize that, so we are not spending city money doing everything,
Right.
it's like in.
So I think your best bet first is always gonna be 311. I mean, that's the main body of where we're gonna get that work from. And the more detail you can put in, the better. So there's a difference between some, the things you described, they're very different kinds of jobs. So like a very discrete panel that isn't even there, that needs replacing, is different than an uplift that needs to be grinded down, or a hole in the sidewalk that can be filled with asphalt to make safe. And so each one of those is gonna involve a different methodology, different equipment, different substances, different amounts of people to do that work. And so the more detail that can be put into that 311, the better for us to figure out, how to get it done right. And so the in-house thing that you described, and I'm really happy about it and excited about it. And I know, Sal has been excited about what they've been able to do with in-house, cement finishing. It still remains a significant challenge for us because we don't have a lot of people trained in how to do that kind of work. It's not as easy as it might seem. Like, it seemed easy to me, but I don't know how to do it. So we've really ramped up efforts in both recruitment and also in training, trying to seek resources to get some sustainability in the department to have a critical mass of people that know how to do that work.
What is that kind of nice, like, how many people?
Right now, I mean, I honestly, how many,
One,
we have
How
a
many
lot,
people would you want that?
how much benefits is my allocated for?
yeah,
Four.
4,
You're
Yeah.
allocated for 4.
yeah, it's,
What do you need?
What do I need?
I mean, it's
Four
first.
plus.
4 plus.
4 plus, but I mean, to be fair, Madam Chair, I mean, we have like kind of one guy right now who actually really knows how to do this, and he directs the work of the rest of the crew, but he's one guy. We have vacancies, there's gonna be one posted tomorrow, literally tomorrow, and we get applicants, but they're not qualified, they don't really know how to do that work, so we need to do a better job of getting people trained and seeking out resources for training, and that's what we're pursuing right now. So some of those, while I'm really happy, and I'm happy that you recognize that was really great that we were able to do that in-house, we can't do as much in-house as we want. So the more detail in the kind of job it is and what you're looking to have done, actually, the better, because a lot we can do in-house.
Director, can I just be clear?
Sure.
about what is the current process? Because, so someone puts in, we're recommending that our residents call 311.
Yes.
Okay, so they go on some sort of message. We're assuming they go on. this.
Mhm.
You guys get the order.
Yeah,
There's whatever detail that is contained is contained.
Yeah.
Whether it's specific or not, you send people out to look at the project.
Yes.
or- Okay.
So, yes,
So
so-
what do you do, from the point you get the, 311?
yes, and in the new 311 system, which is kind of married to the new asset essential system that we use in the Brightly system. It's a little more efficient than it used to be because it goes right to the division that it needs to go to. Sometimes things sound like they're highway when really they should have gone to sewer, and we take care of that, but it depends on what's being reported. If it's a sinkhole, right? So there's a section of the street and it's sinking, that's gonna go right to sewer. They get the first look, these chairs are dangerous. They get the first look at it. They might discover like, oh, this is really a problem for the Narragansett Bay Commission because it's not our line, and they'll refer it. Or they might say, this isn't related to a sewer, it's just, the road needs a little work. They'll send it to highway. And so it kind of gets triaged that way. I'm talking my hands, I shouldn't do that. In terms of like sidewalks, so if you say my sidewalk is broken and my mother tripped over it the other day, Sal gets that. It goes on his, daily to do, and someone goes out and looks at that. usually takes photos
Right.
of it. They come back, they realize what it is, and we need to, this is something we need to go out with the grinder and fix that, and we need to, maybe it's asphalt, and we have to look at, you know, make sure we have enough asphalt, and we use the equipment for that, and so it gets put on, for lack of a better term, a to-do list that Sal maintains on a daily basis, and he can tell you, he can usually tell me, you know, if you call me and say, well, you know, I put in a 311 Monday and it's Thursday, I'm usually able to tell you what day he plans to go out and have that fixed. Because he's doing that sort of triage, and trip hazards rise to the top because they're dangerous, people can fall back.
Like to ask the next question. I'm doing all the time. No, there's, yeah. Going back to the 16 wards and the 16 sections. We have 15 wards, wouldn't that 16 be either between myself, huh? Can you hear me? I know the air conditioners.
16 is downtown.
Yeah, so it would be on one of our lists, it wouldn't be. Is it section up all by itself? That's what I'm asking, I bet.
Yeah, as far as the CIP planning, yes, it's a section by itself, so that's. Yeah, those funds are split equitably 16 ways.
And you said the criteria or whatever, our schools and. How bad it is, schools and whatever, what were the other four, I think it was called. Well.
Yeah, schools, transit stops, rec centers, libraries, hospitals, commercial and retail quarters are given preference. Population density greater than 25,000 people per square mile, that's a census data we use. We also take into consideration ADA requests, so there's a specific contact in the law department who receives those, and will share those with us. And we apply about 1/8 of a mile buffer to that, so theoretically, you're walking some kind of distance, 1/8 of a mile is what we've settled on as far as that range.
Okay, because with those type of criterias, we are main thinking main streets.
That's correct. Yeah, that's how the program was developed. We do hear the need for residential. We stated earlier, we're starting to accomplish the neighborhoods as we get these main corridors behind us.
The other thing, and I guess well, I don't know, we're gonna, the forester has something to do with that, and we have two on Elm Street, that's how you're, with the trees are taking over the whole sidewalk. And how would you address this? Because Elm Street, you cannot put a petition up into the street, it's not gonna work. Have you been able to go look at those, properties on Elm Street?
I'm familiar with those trees, but I hadn't been able to look specifically since the request was made. It's on the to-do list, but that is the meeting sidewalk. And there needs to be a solution for that.
Okay, and what type of solution are you thinking? Because believe me, I love trees. That's what you can tell you.
Yes.
I love trees, but
No,
it comes to life and limb, I love the life and the limb better than I love the tree. And we've already had several incidents where people have gone out in the street, don't get hit because they cannot go, nobody, not even a slender child can get through that little space. And where either one of those trees are. So they're going up in the street. That street is too narrow to be putting out a little buffer to go around it. So as much as I love the trees, because one of those trees has to be, I don't know, hundreds of years old, to be big victims for this. But it's not worth a person's life. So, like I said, as much as I love that tree, I didn't really need to go. You know, so what are your,
So I understand where you're coming from and what it comes down to and how I value the situation. I value the safety of the people and property the most. However, that is a zone that is not equitable tree canopy wise. So. Yeah, removing the trees would solve our issue, but it also compounds another issue that we have going on. So I'm not saying, no, I don't want to remove these trees just because they're in the way. I'm more opposed to removing the trees, compounding another issue that we deal with. And then next thing you know, we have larger heat island effects and health suffers, and that's the question that we set.
No, don't, go back a little bit. What is the compound? What is the problem that?
Environmentally compounds the negative effects of not having many trees in that area that neighborhood suffers from. So removing the trees eliminates the current issue. However, there needs to be a step associated with it that also gives true canopy back to that neighborhood. For every new tree that we plant, for every tree we take down, we need to plant up to 5 times as many to even come close to what we were doing environmentally. So it's just a thought about design with the order of operations with it, and potentially having separate funding that can just go to the planning of that would make it beneficial for the safety of the sidewalks and to the long-term viability of the health of the neighborhood.
Maybe it would help, I just interrupt, maybe it would help if we could just understand how the two departments connect over a project. In other words, if there is sidewalk that is sidewalk problem that is created by trees. Somebody tell me how you handle that. I'm assuming it comes, does it come through the superintendent of parks? Does it come through, DPW? How does that get recorded and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I can speak to the capital improvement side of things and council side of things where we know we have a list of sidewalks that may have tree issues, right? We're going out and doing an initial estimate. Just to quantify and understand what we can get done on a certain project or with NIF funds and CDBG funds. During that time, we're identifying observed tree issues, ensuring those with the forester or his staff. To understand how we have to budget and plan. So we look at a tree and say, no, that's in really poor health, it's at the end of its life. It's scheduled to take that down. An opinion could be, you know what, it's not ready to come down, but we need to excavate to see what the tree root situation is. And we can only do that once we've excavated and can make an informed decision. Sam, if I'm speaking out of line, just feel free to go.
Perfect.
But we're typically knowing ahead of time because we have to budget. Because again, NIF and CDBG are finite amounts of money. We can't open a sidewalk, or we have to take a tree down and not have a solution to close the sidewalk. So that's how we're doing it in the engineering division, where we've got to plan ahead. We're always talking a month or two ahead. Sometimes we've got to talk that week. That's generally how we're doing our work. We can sometimes contract the removal or the tree trimming or the tree root trimming if our forestry department division is jammed up. It's a little bit different for our highway crews who are using in-house crews and plowing the street.
Mr. Lee Joe's trying to make the sidewalk, like we said, we only have one cement finisher, so if we do complete sidewalks, takes us a long time. Basically, what we're doing now is trying to make the trip hazard at the location safe. Then hopefully later on down the line, you just go back and actually redo it.
So you're making the trip hazard safe?
Sorry,
How are you making the trip hazard safe?
they grind it, providing it's not higher than 2 inches, or just put an asphalt, or even mixing bags of cement. Make it like a slope. And in a small hole in the side, we just fill a hole
What about if there's a tree? When there's a tree.
up. Then we have tree wells. Kind of like old and they're all cracked, so we'll go in there and clean it all out and fill that with asphalt.
But this is not addressing either one of these issues. I hate for the on street meeting. But the tree itself goes all the way up to the walls behind it. It takes up the, both of them, take up the entire side.
Yes.
These are people going off the sidewalk into the street. A very busy street full of buses, school buses, pass it all the time. Streets now. There's a stop sign on Bath and Arms. That's where the tree is. There's a corner on Bath and Duke where people go up that, it's a one-way into Duke, so they have to turn up that street. So you cannot, there's nothing that you can do to grind down because there's no space. The space between one of them is this wide and space between the other ones is this wide. The roots are all up, especially on the one on Duke and Holmes. They're up, the street, the roots are up this high. It's like a little mountain. So even if it was not, they have to climb over them. I've had, since I've been council person, I've had at least 5 people almost get hit by a car because of this. It was on my list, the very first list I sent out. I've been talking about this for a long time. I told people, sue, because it makes no sense. I love trees, I'm from the south, I love a tree. You know, I don't want to kill a tree. However, this is not a patchwork where you can put something in the street or grind it down. This is a potential death threat for someone. Because these people go back and forth to school, they're walking constantly. I'm in a pretty working class group. Some of the people don't have cars. They have no choice but to walk. So we're telling them you either gotta go across the street and then go back and forth across the street. That's not fair to them. That's not fair to the people driving up and down this. Because they cannot see them around the sun turn. They're coming around that curve, they won't see the whole thing. You know, so this is, I'm telling you, this is a danger. We really and truly need you to go out there and figure out what you're gonna do, but unfortunately, those trees have to go, both of them. And we're talking about environment. I wanna breathe fresh air like the next person. If you gotta put a few more trees around it, fine. But those 2 trees really need to go. And I'm telling people, if something happens, sue the city. And I will testify, because I've been telling them for years. Okay, so I'm going on.
No, I'm glad you use this, we use this as an example, so I imagine this has been on the list, so what kind of analysis has been done on this particular, if you tell us. If anyone knows this area.
Yeah, so it looks like, I'm looking on Google Maps Street View, and it looks like there has been some, temporary made safe, provisions with the asphalt on either side of that uplift. But beyond that, I can't speak to any work that's been done to the tree roots or the tree itself.
So how does Sam get involved on that particular project anyway?
So this would have to be a coordinated effort between most likely highway and forestry, where the trees do get removed. Plants for new plantings in that area are
And
created,
I'll help you plan.
but the coordination needs to be there so that if forestry just went and cut down those trees right now. And there was no capacity to make that safe pretty much immediately, you have the same issue, only you just don't have a canopy. So it would just require some coordination.
And also we're looking at what funds would be available in a situation like that, like Craig or director. It's, I mean,
Yeah, so that fits in our criteria for capital improvements. You know, we can talk further about Arm Street and how to solve that issue in this next round.
so we only have, I was just gonna say, we only have 20 million. For 5 years. 5 years, we have 20 million in 5 years, so set aside for your sidewalks. That seems extraordinarily low. And, I was just shame that, I'm just gonna say, it's a shame that debt funds, CDBG funds have to be used for sidewalks. Your opinion is 20,798,943 enough in 5 years. I mean, it seems like it's just gonna be a very small amount of money for a very, very large project.
Yeah, I'll say since 2018 to the present, we've invested more in sidewalks that we have in probably 30, 40 years. There was a bond issue back in the 90s for council director repairs. That can be paving, sidewalks, or any kind of neighborhood improvement. I think we've been doing good work, and yes, that money certainly gets us there. $20 million is a lot in sidewalks. It's a lot for the contracting community to do. You know, the average sidewalk, if we're looking at a full frontage of 50 feet, cost upwards of about $8,000. That's kind of the average that we use. It's not cheap work. It's labor intensive. If we're talking a mile of sidewalk improvements, you're approaching $500,000, or somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000. So, yes, and that's why we tried to stretch the budget, right? We're not pulling up sidewalks and replacing them, block to block, full width. We're trying to be strategic about how we stretch the dollar and stretch our repair limits. There are a number of different strategies, which is grinding, tree well enlargement, individual panel replacement, smaller section replacements, and in some cases, yeah, we have to replace a full frontage. But those are what eat away at the budget. And again, the NIF budget can go very quickly when it's $8,000 frontage.
Yes, Council President.
Okay, so we know there's plenty to like repair and do as we're replacing sidewalks. And putting in new tree wells, my understanding is a lot of this. We're like saving the future from this, right? That the tree wells are deep enough, that they're wide enough, that we're not gonna have that some kind of uplift in 15 years, 20 years.
Yeah, so we're working with Forester when we do have those repairs to say, hey, number one, we have these tree issues. Number two, if we're pouring around an area, is a scenario we should block off for tree well. And we're typically getting a dimension from the forester. 4x6 is a typical, but depending on a species that he may see fit, may request something larger. And so if we're on the opposite side of utility poles and utility wires, that may be a better spot for a larger, larger tree species.
So, back to the kind of most efficient use of city funds. If we have some really like very urgent repairs on some of our less trafficked sidewalks, that makes sense to me. Like if there's no other way to get it done, then we should use NIF, that makes sense. If we're talking about places that are relatively well trafficked, I don't know how to calculate my density first, but I'm totally into it, figuring that out. No, but if there's like, if it's in between two commercial corridors very directly and everyone's walking on it all the time, if it meets the criteria for CIP, it makes more sense to me that we would use our NIF money to like buy, plant more trees, right? That than to fix a sidewalk in that area, and that we should be able to partner, right, to get that done. Is there already a process by which the council office, and I'm looking at Kyle through clouds in the back of my head, can get regular information on, okay, this is where the money over the period of the CIP is being spent per board, and this is what's left, and
Yeah, typically we're sharing schedules with Kyle and the council staff. In the past, we've had counselors allocate their NIF or CDBG funds to the existing project that we're working on to say, I want to go farther. Or I want
Yeah.
to address a pedestrian crossing at this intersection or see.
that's a
pedestrian
good way
safety.
to, like, where you're already working kind of tag on, that's a great way, yeah.
Yeah, Ward 6, in previous administrations, I think. Allocated a bunch more money so we could complete a corridor. We knew our funds were stopping at a certain spot. Hey, I really want to get to this block.
Yeah.
I can supplement that with our new funds. And as far as the crossings between main streets, yeah, absolutely. I think we spoke about in Ward 14, Vanderwater Street being one of those. Deep Wall Ave and Ward 13 is also one of those. We're fully supportive of those.
We're just.
Yeah,
Oh,
here today.
No, it's very a little bit. Well, yes, but I know, because we're, please,
I know you're trying to,
no, we're not trying to buy it that much.
never mind.
We're gonna go to council in Houston while you get your question.
It'll come back, it always does.
All right. That's council.
Thank you. Thank you guys for being here for another week of this. It's, I came 2 weeks consecutively to advocate for a little bit more of a conversation about sidewalks, so thank you for doing this. Sidewalks and trees seems to be a big conversation in Ward 14. Sam, you've done a phenomenal job at addressing so many of the concerns that our neighbors have in Ward 14, because we have these huge trees that seem to keep growing and growing and growing, never seem to have a place to go. So thank you for all of that. But one of the things that I and I said this last week, one of the things that I am concerned about is we kind of started on this is making sure that we have enough funding to be able to do. And I believe, while I think that you guys, I defer to you in your judgment about whether or not we have enough, I have a tendency to believe that all these larger trees come with a lot more problems that are not just impacting what we see on the top, but also potentially on the bottom underneath. And I think, well, I'm here to advocate again, to have a little bit more of an understanding and potential plan forward for some of these more problematic trees. Ward 14 is full of them. I think when the plan for building out some of these neighborhoods in the community was done way back when, I don't think anybody understood that these gorgeous, beautiful trees would start growing every which way, and nobody had a kind of a plan to an altered plan to be able to sustain it. And so we have more density, we have more opportunity for more building in all of our neighborhoods. And we have these obstructions of sidewalks that, while the asphalt works for a little bit, the majority of the time, it just gets worn down. And by the time somebody comes through to be able to address it again, the whole process has to kind of be re-seen and redesigned to get something done a little bit more permanent. So I wanna really focus in on finding a way, if there's a way to mobilize some more funding to address some of these things. And my concerns are not so much on the main streets. It's on those side streets where the curb appeal was to have these beautiful canopies of trees, and while they're still beautiful and do exactly what they're intended to do, it has now come with the lifting. And I've had a growing number of constituents that have come forward, more so from a mobility perspective of what we're going to do to be able to alleviate some of these things, because the demographic, or some of the demographic in my particular ward, is aging. And some of them require mobility equipment to be able to walk through, or even just, get around a little bit easier. And I do worry that our plan doesn't necessarily address the need as quickly as families and residents need it to get done. So I would love to be able to see if there's a way to shift, add, alternate, find a different, whatever we need to do to be able to supplement not just the sidewalk improvement opportunity, but also the tree. Because they go hand in hand most of the time, right? So I am here advocating on behalf of Ward 14 about finding a much more, what's the word I'm trying to use? Just a better plan to move forward on that, because we really need it. And I say this knowing, like, that as the demographic of Ward 14 continues to age, it's just gonna come with more things. There was one particular, I utilized some of my ARPA funds to do small projects in front of homes that had, first of all, had been on plan on lists for decades. I don't know, I know that you have a list of decades old, and I think we did too. And some of the people, when we came on as newly electeds, kind of reached out and said, hey, I've had a sidewalk request in for 20 or so years, and nobody kind of knows where that list is. But I tried to address the ones that were the oldest, and the ones that had kind of come out to talk about, I've got an issue, a member of my family is now in a wheelchair. So we tried to address these really small one-offs, with the exception of River Ave and Vanderwater, which I thought were great projects because they're so people utilize those streets the most. But that money ran out as quickly as I think we did 10 projects, and there was still one that's kind of lingering. It's clear that we need to do so much more, and we don't have the opportunity to. So what can we do? Can we tell me what I need to do to get it done, please.
Yeah, so I do want to say, we did jump on an opportunity with the Rhode Island Road and Bridge revolving fund. I'm sorry, maybe not a revolving fund. But it was an opportunity for municipalities to take state matching funds to use towards road, bridge and sidewalk. We leveraged our ARPA allocation to gain about another $1.2 million in sidewalk funding direct from the state. So it was an allocation made directly to each city, and right, here's what you get if you can match it. And any unused funds can be made available to you after. And we were approached with that. We had shown progress, we were actively working, so we kept building that project. I anticipate a solicitation coming out again for the next fiscal year. But those are ways that we can fund that. I know there's a lot of different tree grants out there also. I believe Ride is offering street trees. Well, I'll let Forrester speak to that.
Essentially, how we leverage any planting in the city is with community partners. We have grants and then we're competing really closely. And that is 98% of the trees that we can put in. You need a tree that's big enough that doesn't just get snapped right away and you didn't waste time cutting the pit and all the labor hours. And you need a tree that's also small enough that you can have community engagement with. So it's this really sweet spot of what is accessible and equitable to get out to any neighborhood and have it succeed. With that being said, that is a finite amount of money. We're able to do about 550 trees a year, and that's been a number that's gone through for the last 3 years, right around there. 10 years at 500. And it's a good start. It is just enough to keep our current canopy slightly growing every year. But with those smaller trees to make it more equitable, we do have higher mortality rates, so it turns into a real juggling act of what area is worth putting X amount of time and effort into, funds, obviously. So that's the balancing act there. DEM does give away trees, however, it's just not the species or the quality that we would accept in local city.
Can I follow?
Yes.
How do you determine what area is more beneficial to receive this support than others?
First, it comes down to the tree equity score, which is a national scoring system that everyone uses to see what the heat island effect is, the pollution, the air quality. The lower the score, the bigger need for trees is demonstrated. And then using that matrix, we then see the desire within the neighborhood to want to steward these trees. So it takes the burden of establishment of the city. And that program has proven to work, and other cities are actually emulating that program because you have buy-in from the community and you have the correct consultation and utility happening. But it is a juggling act. There are some neighborhoods that have low tree equity that don't want trees, do want sidewalks, and that's a tricky one where it compounds. Is a conflicting value. Although I understand that you're dealing with an issue that I want to solve.
And one more question.
Yes.
Okay,
go ahead.
We also present plan, Providence plan to our community girl, and that was supported, so there's, it seems like how the farm.
Yeah.
City and what it is, that's a cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The last question I have is around staffing. I think one of the things that I learned from the budget meetings was that in many cases, we're kind of understaffed in different departments, and I wanted to understand a little bit more about what, if we're facing all of these issues, right? But one of them always seems to be like, how do we staff it, or how do we get the projects done as quickly as possible? What else is there that we're perhaps potentially missing that we need to be aware of to be able to kind of move these potential opportunities forward? And I ask both Parks and DPW because I think I just feel that sidewalks and trees go hand in hand right now, so I'd love to have some insight.
Yes, so.
So I think the challenge is the people to do the work, they're just not there.
Yeah.
We had some really successful
tree trimmers have retired. It's a very, very, very hard job. It's possibly one of the most dangerous jobs that we can do. And so it's just a challenge to find folks. There's no longer anybody in Rhode Island, right? In Arbors, and that's one of the reasons why we established a apprenticeship fund with local tenure degree, so that we would train apprentices from other divisions to then go into forestry to be ready to do that. So far we've trained about 2.5 successfully. So it's a challenge, and that's a really great one. As you know, there's a lot of tree damage coming down with these storms, and so there are many, private companies that are able to be very nimble and, be able to hire folks.
It should pay very well.
And to be humble, there's that, yes, it is, it's a challenge all around. Sam is doing an incredible job to get department people want to be in, but it's a skill level that to be a tree trimmer, you need 3 to 5 years of real experience to do it. We're putting people in after 6 months of an apprenticeship program. So it's, what it has done is it just really shifted, Sam from doing sort of more bigger picture work to doing real hands-on, this is safety. Yeah, we need to do together. So, but I don't think that's anything unique. I think it's just the situation with our economy right now and what people train in schools. Yeah.
Same. Really, I mean, the challenges I talked about with cement finishing, the highway crew has a lot of responsibilities beyond sidewalks. And so, there's that competition, but it really has been a challenge, whether it's a lost art, I'm not sure. But just getting people with that kind of training and experience, because that's really the key. Willing to work for, they could probably make more money if they had their own company or work for a contractor. So, there's a lot of moving parts to that challenge, and we're trying to address them, but we're behind.
Yes, that's a raise. I was gonna say that if it's a loss and not, and we are not going into this fields. How we gonna observe?
Well, trees require on average a 10-year pruning cycle. So when you plant a new tree, the idea behind it is that within the next 10 years, you really won't have to do any significant work to it besides, a couple of hand snips and some breaking. And with that being said, we also have a block pruning vendor that is run through a brand, a city match brand. And we operate on that 10-year cycle. We have the current schedule published on the park's website of what we're doing for current fiscal year. And that takes about 1,100 trees that get pruned just through a third party. And the city has quality assurance checks on it. That's essentially how we're keeping up with the demand.
I would also say that we're also planting different trees, right? We know there are species that will not plant now because they have very shallow roots that are gonna grow up and out versus down. There are also tree canopies where you're gonna have branches arching out versus going up in a conical form, which are less prone to damage. So these are things that we know now and are planning for and thinking through, and that's one of the things that's great about Sam's expertise. I'm gonna ask a follow-up, what about water? Because some of these trees aren't surviving because they don't have water.
So we, through PMPP, part of getting your tree planted, you get all the assistance with the sidewalk being cut, the whole being pressed. Part of the deal is you get this tree for free, however, you are signing off on a pledge to water this for the first establishment.
But is that working well? Because I planted some private. It's private thing, when we planted a bunch of trees and a lot of those trees did not survive.
I would say it is working well. There's always going to be someone who maybe signs up for, more responsibility than they realize it would be, and that tree does not make it. But I would say that's a lesser scenario than tree succeeding.
Council President.
I would also just say, so PMPP also does this, program, I wanna call it, say it's tree steward, is that what it's called? Which is really great, so that, like whether or not you're a property owner, whether or not you're saying yes to a tree in front of your house. You can be trained, for basic tree care, and like if there are trees that you help plant that you notice are in distress, and every PMPP group can help. With tree stewards, and then I just wanna make a pitch, and I will always make a pitch. For, the training aspect of this, right, like these are good jobs, they are skills that are hard to come by, you know, they are a dying art that we all need, and like. The ability for us to be able to create, some really excellent careers through and meet the city need, makes so much sense to me.
Maybe this is a good time for Andrew to talk about the extra efforts that are gonna happen now on the grinding of the stuffs and how that process is gonna work.
Sure,
Calling them something Saturdays.
make safe Saturday.
Make safe Saturdays. Can you talk about what that's going to, what that looks like?
Sure, so we're gonna start this Saturday, see how it goes, and then figure out what the schedule looks like, whether it's a once a month Saturday. Blitz that happens, if you will, or, you know, what the cadence would be, this is our first week this Saturday, so. We'll see how it goes. Basically, what Highway has done is they've identified 32 sites where there have been, mostly through 311 calls for repair of trip hazards. These are strictly trip hazards, not my sidewalk is ugly hazards. This is like someone's gonna get hurt, type of thing. And so they've identified 32 of those and then an additional 9 areas where there's a tree well, where there's no longer a tree. So as you can imagine, that turns into a trip hazard. And so for the 32 sites, they have already been assessed, they've been photographed. It's been determined what needs to be done to that trip hazard. Is this an asphalt thing, or is this a, you know, do we have to grind down the sidewalk to even it out with the other piece of it? Sal has 6 crews queued up for this Saturday to start that work. We have to ensure that the vendor that we purchased the asphalt from is actually gonna be open this Saturday. We believe they are. We need to double check that. But we believe they are. And the goal, by the way, the 32 sites encompass 14 different wards. Just happens to be the way the 311s shook out. We didn't leave anyone out. It just worked out that way, that it's in 14 of the 15 wards. And the goal is to do all 32 of those on Saturday. We hope we can. And most, if not all, of the 9 tree wells, those involve a little more complexity than just filling a hole or grinding a sidewalk, because they first have to dig out and really clean that well to get it ready for asphalt. But that, you know, but that's the plan. And then we'll be providing kind of the criteria for what, assuming hopefully this Saturday is a success, the criteria for what that looks like going forward. So if someone says, well, I have a sinkhole, is that a make safe Saturday? No, put it into 311 and describe it the way you're describing it. But, so we'll be able to provide some guidance on what we'll be doing on those Saturdays particularly, but it's what it says, it's making it safe. It's keeping those hazards from developing into something where someone's gonna get hurt.
And are you doing that? How many Saturdays are you doing?
So this is our first Saturday. We want to, you know, we have the goal. We have an aspiration of getting the list done. We want to see how that works out in reality. Hopefully, I can come back and say, yeah, we did all 32. But sometimes these things can be unpredictable depending on all different factors when they get there. And so after that, I think we're gonna sit and say, okay, how'd we do? What were the unexpected things that came up? What do we need to do better next time? How can we, you know, flex to make sure it works as well as it needs to work? And from there, we'll be able to probably come up with a better idea about what the cadence will look like.
And what would be the best way for us as the council to follow up?
I mean, I can report to you or Kyle, I can send Kyle a kind of a debrief after it happens and say, hey, here's how we did. And certainly if you have any suggestions after that, I'd be happy to hear them.
Kyle is intimately involved with our wishes, our council wishes, I think that, that would be an excellent thing, if you don't mind, let me just pile on to your, add to your already long list of responsibilities, but I'm just thinking.
Sorry, Kyle. It's got you more work.
And reporting that to us, let us know, and I also need to know, if you can, no one's been able to answer this question. Where is your list of sidewalks, and how do we know if our projects are on your sidewalk list?
You guys wanna take that?
I know that's always asked.
I'll jump on this a little bit, because I've been involved with Norel's and 211 Mayor Center City Services, trying to sort.
I can't hear your.
I apologize for that, I forget, but things are loud. So I'll jump in a little bit, I don't have the full history, but from what I've seen, I came in the city in 2020. And I heard rumors of this list, the sidewalk list and things. And what I kind of came to piece together over a few years was that it was kind of it went different versions. It was a spreadsheet, then a database, but it was basically a bunch of different departments would get taking requests for sidewalk repairs. And that would go onto this list. In some cases, they were, a lot of them, when they were starting to look at the time, this was years and years ago, they were more aesthetic issues than they were safety issues in a lot of cases. So trying to read through that, but that list sort of came in from different places. It grew, it was multiple lists put together. It got to the point where it was 8,000 plus entries in there that would have been very challenging to try to review that and figure out which was, which repairs may have happened, which didn't. So with the 311 system, I worked with Norel's to try to get it so that we could start bringing in all new requests into the 311 system. And it's not that we wanted to not do anything with the old list, but it was so very difficult to manage and figure out what was actually still a valid request or not, or who had taken it in. That we worked with the 301 with fields and things, and so people could make the request and then that could go to highway to get looked at. So there is people, are correct in many cases. You will say, oh, I was here 15 years ago, I put my name on a list, but that list was really more of a log of a complaint versus any active list that was being looked at or drawn down on. So we tried to implement a list that would be sort of an active list and drawn down on, to not ignore what was there, but try to move forward without having that, bog everything down. Unfortunately, it kind of, still sitting there. We might reference it from time to time, but there was no active list of, here's the repairs that came in, and we're working from the oldest to the newest to get everything repaired. It was just sort of different people, different departments writing it down because there was no means to deal with it in many cases. So
I'm getting is it possible for the first, or maybe the list to retire, of the active sidewalk list? I'm gonna call it the active sidewalk list, because I understand what
Yes.
you're saying, that there's been years and years and years and years, but I think that we as council people, and maybe we can have it broken down by a board, just so that we as council people can know what is on your active list, and then we can say, oh my gosh, I've heard 15 times from so-and-so, and they're not on the list.
There's also a time where the council maintained and had access to that list also, so. Right, they're part of that, you can get your break, that time has passed. We can get your breakdown by wards, but it may be wards over the past 25 years, right? So we'll do our best to identify, but we're changing ward lines.
the old list or the current 311 system?
Oh,
The active list.
Okay.
Yeah.
so the
okay,
311
speaking of the old list,
I'm speaking
Okay.
of the active.
311.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Council President.
I would just say, I've been saying to residents in the last couple of years, if anyone says something like, oh, I put my sidewalk on it so many times. If it was like 10 years ago, even if they did it 6 times 10 years ago, I'm telling people to go back through and undo. So like,
Much different,
we need
much different.
a do-over on that one.
And that's what we've been telling people too, is if you were on there, we're sympathetic, please put it in the new system, because that's the best way for us to currently track it.
Yeah.
So that is something the relics can probably get a copy of. It goes into the 311 system now. We saw, I think that started beginning of 2024, maybe in 2023 with the old 311 system. I don't know. I think a lot of those were brought into the new system, was my understanding. So she could probably get a report and run things. Here's all the sidewalk requests that have come in, and the status of those. Yep.
I was gonna say, yes, I would be one more thing, just because he's.
Considering services office, but you must do it.
And that's
Sorry for
why-
misunderstanding that.
and that's why it was put in the 311 system, so there would be an ability to extract the data, look at it, and try to track and follow up on it.
So that notice goes out to anybody who wrote this, because I have been, I mean, there are people that still sitting on the list that you're saying may not have been transferred.
If we get contacted, because we don't know necessarily even have good contact information in that old list of that if people do contact us, we encourage them to put it in, or we have
So these are
contact the mayor, center for city services, so they can assist them in putting it in. And then that way we'll get on the current list and can be tracked.
You need to get on this right.
Yeah.
For passes.
Okay.
Yes, and just so we know, we have only three of us, and the counselor in your office will be on 6:45, so, yes, counselor.
Just a quick follow-up on this one. I love this idea of the Make Safe Saturday, so thank you very much for
Yes.
all of you guys that are doing it. It's super helpful, and I think that it goes a long way to show the neighbors, like, look, the crew, you know, not that they don't acknowledge it already, but it's just very helpful to be able to say they're coming out, the crews are coming out on the weekends to address these needs. My question is with regards to potential areas that haven't been addressed yet. Will we still continue having them submit to 311, or can we give you an identified list of?
311,
Okay. Okay,
which is not to say, if I can, it's not to say that, like, if you pick up the phone and call me and tell me, and then, I mean, obviously that happens every day.
Right.
But it's, the 311 is the most efficient. Because you call me, now I gotta call him, and then, oh, maybe it's a, 311 is gonna go right to where it's.
And that is part of the reason there, that the original list, because a lot of different people took it in, and some of them never got recorded, some of them didn't that, so that's why, as much as it, we don't have to tell people to do another step, we'd like it to end with the person they talked to, but it needs to go to the next step, so we know it gets in the system, and we know it can get tracked.
Okay, we're one more minute, and I'm gonna have the superintendent.
So just want to ask for that, we're all in the same asset management system now, so that if the tree gets flagged, once they're doing, then that can be immediately turned into a work order for forest. So that is very, very different. So past, so I'm pretty confident that we're gonna make up for the lost time versus. Did somebody get a phone call on this? Is this on a piece of paper somewhere? So everything is electronic, shared across the department.
Counselor Grace.
I think my biggest concern is. We have monthly meetings, that's true, but all those people that are on the list or on 4 or 5 lists that we have, do not come from our culture. And they've been on there for ever and ever, and some of them have reported, but they may not have reported in the last year or so. So they're telling me you have a list now of new people. And we still have this list of all these other people that we say. What kind of notification, because I don't think it's fair now, because. Say I've been on this since 2016. And I reported it, but then I was on 3 different lists, because there was some people on 3 different lists. Now, I'm thinking, okay, eventually they're doing a sidewalk, I'm gonna get my sidewalk done, and then the person that lived next door to me, who just happened, when something happened, now they're getting their sidewalk done. And they just got on a list, I don't know, I wish people would come up with a way of letting each other know, hey, this is gonna be a new season. please get in contact, so we could send us a blanket thing up to the city. I mean, in order for us to honestly say that we reached out to our constituents, all of us, is to send a blanket thing up saying, you know, if we have repairs, it's been on the list, then we really need to call 311. And you let them know that you've been on the list, and if you have a date and time, put that date at the time in here, because otherwise, they're still sitting on the list thinking that they're eventually gonna get done. And I just moved in last week and I called and they walked right past your house as they trip or whatever to get to my house to fix the sidewalk. We really have to come up with it. I think that I love that everybody's enjoying this 311. They seem to think that it's something good system. But we have to make sure that we get in contact with that heart of the city so everybody's understanding. So this is something that just came out, I don't know who can generate something, but I would like for us to send something out. Tell them, this is helpful.
Yeah, we can.
Yes, Council President. Yes.
So one final thing that I will share, I know that, I've heard from like many city departments that the new 311 is better. It is not for users. I've been sitting here for the last 20 minutes trying to put in a request because my friend is a sinkhole. So as we're sitting here thinking about this, I was like, oh yeah, that's sinkhole. So, and it's really challenging. It's hard to do on your phone. Like it's genuinely, I had to like log in 3 different times. It's hard to, you have to know that sinkhole is one word, not two, which I did not, but now I do. Like, I don't know, is there like user interface stuff that can still happen with this? Cause I had to like scan through to like 12 different pages to get there, or is there not, and I missed it like that? Yeah, I mean, yeah.
All right, that's good.
So,
Question answer that question.
Great.
Council President, that was an excellent question. There is money in the IT budget this year to help improve that, a lot of things.
Love that.
But one of them will be the user interface.
Thanks very much.
So I'd encourage any feedback or, suggestions to come to the Management Industry Services and, Norellis can help with that input.
Thank you.
I can say to one person we forgot to include in this meeting was Norellis. Because now we are heading into the communication and I've been using 311 for a long time and whatever changes made was. Probably is, I'm just saying, it's really that. Okay. Just.
No, I heard you. I know.
Yes, Councilor Anderbot, and then unfortunately, we are going to have to take some action on CA.
Mine is more of a comment than a question, but I remember that I think just said, we just had Norellis come to my community meeting and she walked her through, I didn't know where she was there, it was also like, what the heck, but I think I was gonna say, it'd be great if the council had access to this new asset management software. Because then, like, we wouldn't have to be meeting all the time, and we just our best friend file that, so we can't see into that, so maybe past councils are able to see in, but we have less access to the 311 and have the asset management system that we had before, so it's like Kyle and Melly, just to say that, Kyle and Melly and others can get into that. I'll make a note of that for you. Thank you, Crystal, you're the best.
Okay, and I hate to move us along, but there's 3 of us today. And so we really do need to take some action on the CIP. Obviously, these communications I really appreciate you coming because these are the most important issues for us as councilors to get our. No, we didn't talk entirely about roads, but we have better knowledge of roads. Thank you, Craig. I know that we're online, we can talk at some other time, but sidewalks is the issue for us right now. But with that said, we do have to contact the CIP for all reasons that we've discussed over 3 meetings now, as amended, yes. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve, the CIP as amended, recommend approval to the council. Is made by Councilor Anderbach, seconded by Councilor Graves, all in favor? Aye. All opposed. So, thank you. We'll be having more meetings, but we're very excited about Saturday.
Yeah.
Wait,
which
no pressure, no
pressure.
Yeah.
And if it's one of ours, don't tell us.
Okay, don't tell us, Tell us. We'll just be looking all over the place for everyone Saturday.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have a motion to adjourn. Okay, motion to adjourn by Council Rainbow, seconded by Council Graves, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
If someone wants to teach me how to do this, I